Hey everyone, so for this week's video, this may seem a bit like a no-brainer to some of you, but there may be others that are in a similar situation as us and are planning a child's first visit to the Disneyland Resort. There's actually a lot to consider, more so than you may realize, so I just want to talk about some of the things that you have to think about before you get ready to leave. First of all, you definitely need to make sure that you're planning out enough time to get a lot done. Now, I've said this before, that I think 3 days is a good minimum trip to Disneyland. There are people who do it less, there are people who do it more, but for a first trip, I really think it's important that you do it for about 3 days or more, so that it doesn't feel too rushed and that you actually have time to get most of the stuff accomplished. So that is definitely my recommendation. Give yourself enough time to get, a good amount of stuff done. Very, very important. You need to figure out what rides your child can go on. I mean that in two ways. Number one, you want to talk to them about the sort of rides that they might be interested in. Try and gauge whether they are going to enjoy things like Guardians of the Galaxy or the Incredicoaster, or if they're really only going to want to focus on things like Space Mountain, or maybe even smaller than that, like the Tiki Room or the Jungle Cruise. And just gauge and see what they're going to be interested in and what they are going to be prepared for. Maybe pick out a couple of attractions that you can try to introduce them to see if they like it, but then largely you want to stay in their interest level and not force them onto anything that they're not going to want to ride. You also want to figure out what they're going to be able to ride, so you need to measure them before you leave to make sure that they're tall enough. Because if they're not tall enough to go on all the rides, you don't want to get their hopes up about rides that they're never going to be able to ride. And also keep in mind that if they're just barely tall enough to get on a ride, let them know that the cast member will be wanting to measure them time and time again, because they just want to make sure that they're tall enough. And so if they're right there, they're going to get pulled aside a lot. You'll also want to take into consideration what sort of characters they may want to meet. If there's any in the parks that are their favorites that they're just going to be dying to meet for the first time. Because that way you can figure out whether or not you need to set aside some time to wait in lines, like to meet the princesses, or if you have to figure out exactly when their favorite character is going to be wandering around the parks, or available period, or if they're available, for other sorts of interactions, which leads me into the next point, figuring out your food situations. Do you want to pack food? Do you want to just get some quick service meals inside the parks? Or do you want to go all out and even get some dining reservations in the parks? Because if you do, even if you just want to get the quick service this as well, you need to make sure you check out their menus. Figure out what they have. Do they have anything that your child will like? Do they have only things that you will like and your child not so much? Then you may want to figure that out. And maybe you do want to get some table service restaurants reserved. Maybe you even want to make sure you go and get some character dining set aside, because maybe some of their favorite characters are going to be there. You want to also make sure that your child understands certain safety things, that they understand they have to follow any rules given to them by a cast member, that they have to make sure that they know what your rules are for them while they're wandering in a very crowded public place, and also that they know that if anything were to happen and you get separated, that they can ask a cast member for help and they can feel safe there, or they know where they might be able to go look for you. So that, heaven forbid, the worst should happen, they're kind of prepared for it and they know what they can do to keep themselves safe. Lastly, and I see parents do this quite a bit, don't overcrowd your child's vacation. I think there are too many parents that want their child to be able to do everything the first time. And so they schedule everything. They make sure they see every parade, that they see all the nighttime shows, that they go on every attraction they possibly can. Until pretty soon this child just didn't have the time to soak anything in. And neither did the rest of the family. And so how magical is that really? And they didn't get a chance to really enjoy it. So don't overcrowd them. I think it's more important that you get a few really great experiences in than all mediocre experiences. So just pick out the most important ones that you think are vital, that you must do, and just see if the others will happen. And if they do, yay. If they don't, no big deal. And then both you and your child are gonna have a great first visit. Like I mentioned, these are some things that we're just thinking about for the first time. And so I realized that this might be a really good video to talk to you guys about. If you have any other suggestions that you would give to families who are taking their kids to Disneyland for the first time, whether really small children or older children, go ahead and leave those in the comments as well. Maybe there's some things that I've never thought about before, but would be really helpful for other people to consider. Also, you can still leave any questions that you have and comments and requests for other videos down there. I love reading through them. I always do. Maybe I don't always reply, but I'm always reading them. And make sure that you like and subscribe to keep getting more of our videos. Follow us on our social media, and we will see you guys next week. All right, bye.